Hi you guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we are returning to our video podcast series. This is the second episode, so I just started this last month and I just wanted to thank you guys so much for your very sweet response on the last video. You guys were super sweet and just seemed excited about this series and more of this content, so I am very happy about that because it makes me really excited, all the ideas I have for this series. So thank you for joining me again today. I wanted to crack my drink because honestly I'm a little parched. Today we have a wild berry poppy, absolutely one of my top flavors right now. So let's crack her open. Cheers, y'all. So good, this flavor. So I saw some comments on the last episode requesting an episode on my biggest financial mistakes and lessons. So the last video was actually based on mistakes as well. You guys know I love talking about personal finance, and especially as a woman, I feel so inclined and just so like excited to share what I have learned from being someone that kind of had this like weird career high when I was young, and then kind of like learning financially how to move into another phase of life, which is kind of just where I've been at for the past few years now. So today we're gonna be talking about all that, whether it's tips I've learned that have really helped me to increase my income that I would love to share with you guys, and of course, sharing those past mistakes to hopefully help someone out there, and maybe some of you guys will be able to relate to hearing some of those. I also wanted to remind you guys about my VIP podcast access tier on my Patreon. It's my most affordable tier, and that's how you can actually access all of these episodes in this series completely ad-free. You're also gonna get them early, typically a day or two before they post on YouTube, and the ability to ask me questions for future episodes. So today we're actually gonna be doing our first patron question in this video. So if any of that sounds fun, interesting to you, if you wanna support this series, it's gonna be the first link down below in the description box. So I have become much more financially literate and financially educated over the years, and I do feel like I've learned so much because this is a topic that I actually really enjoy, but I have also made a lot of mistakes, and there's so many things that I just wish I knew sooner. I wish I knew when I was younger. So there's no better time for a video like this if you're just like, tell me all of the things, or you're younger. I mean, even, you know, I'm 30. It's never too late to learn these things, but it's also never too early. But today I'm gonna be sharing with you the top 5 biggest financial mistakes I've made. I think I made all of them in my 20s. So let's get into it. All right, mistake number 1, and honestly, we just have to start off strong. That seems like the theme of these videos is truly just exposing myself. I was $15,000 in debt when I was 22, and at the time, I truly felt so drowned in my debt. I felt so shameful because I knew that I was the only reason to blame for that. Nobody made that happen to me. It was all on me. I felt stuck for a really long time. It took me a couple years to be able to pay it off, and that was from really focusing on paying it off, increasing my income, really budgeting, really saving, and even then, you know, it taking a couple years. So I'm very grateful that I've been debt-free for years now. I think that experience, well, I wish it didn't happen, and we're gonna talk about it a little more. Also, I feel like it was such a turning point and a learning experience in my financial journey that I just know what that felt like, and the weight of not knowing when I was gonna be able to be debt-free, and just having that, it literally felt like, you know, people say like a weight on your shoulders. That is what debt, my thing was credit card debt. So, but it really feels like that. It feels like there is this weight, and I can't even tell you how incredible the feeling was the day I was finally able to pay off all of that debt. And I just knew from that point forward, like, it's not even a new chapter, it's like a new book was starting in my financial life. So let's travel back in time. I've told this story before, but I'll just try to keep it a little bit brief for this video, but I want you guys to be able to understand. I was kind of living a bougie lifestyle for a while. We'll kind of talk about this more in other points in this video, but I definitely was living, you know, I think above my means a little bit for a while. And, you know, it was kind of fine. Like I was kind of living within my means for a few years. And then I got to the point where I wasn't making quite as much money, but I was still living the same lifestyle or trying to, you know, really expensive rent, really expensive car payment, like traveling all the time. Cause I just had a strange career of having success at a young age. So with that, you know, I had money at a young age. So in the year 2017, I kind of hit this quarter life crisis. I think we talked about that in my last video. And I decided I was going to put my stuff in storage, move across the country back home to my parents' house, and kind of like I needed to start saving money. And I also just kind of wanted to figure out where I wanted to go next. It was kind of this limbo period. And so I ended up like, I think right before that, I was kind of struggling with my rent payment of that month. I was just struggling financially. And I ended up putting my rent on my credit card 1 month. And from that point, I kind of like snowballed into thousands of dollars of debt over a few months because I had all these expenses come up, and it was kind of just the type of thing where I was like, I decided this is happening. Like, I don't want to pay this rent anymore. I was trying to save money, but in the process of saving money over the long term, I also had to spend money. So yeah, I moved out, but I had to pay a lot of money to move out because I believe I was breaking my lease. I honestly can't remember how much I had to pay to move out, but I had like moving expenses when I moved out of charges, and it was just like a whole mess. Putting my stuff in storage, that was a lot cheaper than paying rent, but it was still a monthly cost. And then even when I was living at home, of course, I didn't have to pay rent, but I felt like there was just all these other life expenses, and I was kind of trying to like play catch up with figuring out how to increase my income, but just I was struggling basically, okay? So that's how I got $15,000 in debt. It happened over a few months, and that is the highest point I got up to, which is crazy to look back on. Like, that is a lot of money to know that you have to pay off. And I actually have an entire video opening up about my debt and kind of talking about how talking about this more in depth, because it honestly could be a whole video. So I will go ahead and link that. I never remember which side the cards are, but I'll link it up here as a card. I'll also link it down below in the description box if you want to go and watch it after this video, if you want to dive more into that topic of debt. Been there, done that. You know, it kind of started spiraling because once you have a few $1,000s worth of debt, you end up getting hit with all these like interest charges, and you're only able to pay whatever the amount is that you're able to pay every month. And so it starts increasing, and that's where it gets really scary. And that's where I just didn't like kind of realize until it happened to me how easy and quickly it can happen. So I don't want to be one of those people that's like, debt is super shameful. I believe it's normal to have a little bit of debt. Most people have some kind of debt. I've been talking about credit card debt, but most people have some sort of debt because your mortgage is technically debt that you owe. Your car payment is technically debt that you owe. Student loans, that's also technically debt. So sometimes we don't think about, I feel like sometimes we think about debt, like credit card debt, as kind of like the worst. And that's because it does have those really high interest charges a lot of the time. I definitely do not want to say that debt is inherently bad. I think it's very normal to have debt, but you just have to know that you're comfortable to be paying off the required amounts, right? Like, we know this. Don't take on a really, really, really high monthly car payment if it's absolutely not something that you can afford. But this experience for me, like, I will never, ever, ever be in thousands of dollars of credit card debt again. I think it's okay to build up a little bit of a balance as long as you know you're gonna be able to pay it off in the next, let's say, like month or two. But it can get really, really dicey really quickly. And so that's something that I've just completely, like, my relationship with credit has completely changed since that experience, and I barely use credit cards. It's just good to, of course, like, have credit and build your credit. That's, once again, a whole other video topic. I think it took me around 2 years to pay off my balance completely. Honestly, I just had to be really, really patient and just take it month by month and throw so much money, like almost all my extra money at my debt, which is not fun to do, but it was very necessary. And sometimes things just happen in life. There's unexpected expenses, and sometimes these things just happen. So I don't ever want to put shame, like I said, around debt. I've been there. I know that other people have been there or will be there. Things happen in life, but just make sure if you are in debt that you have a plan, like an active plan to pay it off as soon and as quickly as you can, keeping in mind, of course, your other necessary living expenses. Okay, my next biggest financial mistake, I'm just gonna basically label this one as lifestyle creep. Now, if you haven't heard of the term lifestyle creep, I'll go ahead and put the official definition on the screen because I might word it slightly differently. But lifestyle creep essentially means when your income has increased and you start living a bit more lavishly, and because you're making more money, right? You have an income change. I could even see it in the ways of like, maybe you go from living alone and paying all rent on your own to living with a partner or living with a roommate, and your rent is suddenly cut in half. So then you're like, oh my gosh, I have this extra like $1,000 something a month. That means I can spend $1,000 more a month. When really the financially savvy way to do that, which is not the fun way to do it, but would be like, oh my gosh, how can I take this extra $1,000 a month that I'm not gonna have to be spending on rent and put it towards my long-term financial goals? Like maybe you could start saving that money for a down payment on a house. Maybe you could put that money into your retirement fund every single month, right? But of course, in our little heads, and I do this too, I think a lot of people do this, but we're just like, ooh, I'm gonna have like so much extra money. And then you start just like balling out in all these ways. So that's essentially lifestyle creep. Now, what I mean when I say my own personal mistakes with lifestyle creep, I think this might be something that is technically like reverse lifestyle creep, but I'm gonna still say it's the same thing because I don't know what else to call it. But kind of like around this time, right before I ended up going into debt and I was just, like I said, struggling financially, I was living just out of my means, like I said, for a while. And I think it took me a long time to kind of realize that, and also realize I really needed to adjust my lifestyle, which was obviously difficult to do because it just wasn't natural for me. So maybe this is more reverse lifestyle creep. Like I said, I was not making as much money. I also just wasn't like working that much. I wasn't posting that much. So obviously things are gonna like slow down. But things like my rent just felt so much more expensive than, you know, it had been when I moved in, even though it was like the same amount. My car payment, all of a sudden every month it was like, oh my gosh, this is so much money. And I actually ended up selling my car that I only had for like a year back at this time. But you know, I started to like get in check with these things and just spending frivolously, like traveling all the time. I was getting eyelash extensions, which, you know, just these little things, right? Like these little unnecessary things, nails, whatever it is, they really add up. And sometimes those things are like fine if you really fit them into your budget, but I had no budget at this time in my life. And I was truly just flying by the seat of my pants financially, which is not really that smart. So where I go back to like reverse lifestyle creep is I had to adjust my lifestyle to be a new like financial bracket, right? Like I just was also not good at tracking my income at this time. It's a whole thing. We have a lot of regrets looking back, okay? But also let's look at it as a learning experience, right? I basically just needed to adapt to making less money and adapt to living a lot less lavishly, which I did end up doing. Like I said, I moved home, I sold my car, I wasn't paying rent for a while. And then I kind of feel like once I moved to Boise, I kind of adjusted things a little bit and like continued to, and got a little bit better. So if you didn't know about lifestyle creep, just be very aware that it is a totally real thing and it's kind of normal. Like it's exciting when you're making more money, right? That's not something that shouldn't be exciting. So just keeping in mind that if you do find yourself in a place that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like making so much more money than I was a couple years ago, or, you know, just down the line, you're like increasing your income, just be smart about that, because in my experience, like when I was was making a lot more money, I mean, it's not that I thought it was gonna last forever. I'm not totally delusional, but I think I just didn't factor in how much it would affect my future to save more. That's actually another one of my mistakes that we're gonna talk about later in the video, so I'll save the rest of that. But yes, lifestyle creep, or reverse lifestyle creep, if that's even a thing. I may have just invented that for this video, but I feel like you guys understood what I was trying to say. Okay, financial mistake number 3. If any like financial advisors or financial people are watching this video, they're probably gonna cringe at this one, but I just have to speak my truth. Mistake number 3 is not having any emergency fund. I know. Hey, that's why it's a mistake, okay? So, well, first of all, let's start off with what an emergency fund is, because honestly, this I feel like is a term that, oh, sorry, my nose itches. I feel like this is a term that's gotten more popular over recent years. I think it's, of course, my nose still itches. I think it's been a thing for a while, but I feel like I started hearing a lot more about it, like this cushion, your emergency fund is your cushion. I started hearing more about it in the last few years, okay? I haven't always heard about it. Of course, we always hear, you know, you need to have some money in savings for a rainy day, blah, blah, blah. But your emergency fund is essentially money that is set aside, ideally in a high yield savings account, which we're gonna talk about. This is money that is set aside. You're not thinking of it as your normal savings. You're not planning really to have to use it on anything specific, because when you are gonna have to use it, and you're gonna have to use it, trust me, it's gonna be on unexpected expenses, okay? Things that come up, like you have car problems and you go to the car shop and it's $1,000 to fix your car. And as for the amount, people say that ideally you want to build up your emergency fund to be like 3 to 6 months of necessary living expenses. So like if you lost your job, 3 to 6 months. Now, I personally feel like that sounds, if you are starting your emergency fund from $0 like I was, that sounds so crazy, like so much money. So I just want to put out there that how I feel about an emergency fund as someone who did not have one for a very long period of time. And I would just be that person that would like put unexpected expenses that I didn't have savings for on my credit card. That's what you're gonna probably do because you have to pay for it, right? I just want to tell you guys that any amount in an emergency fund, we're talking $500, okay? Any amount in an emergency fund is significantly better than not having one. And of course, it's like annoying to save for because there's just so many other expenses in life, but you basically know that you're gonna have to use your emergency fund at some point. Like I have at least 2, if not like 5 unexpected expenses that come up, I feel like every year that I have not properly budgeted and saved for. So that's where your emergency fund is gonna help you out so much. So recently I actually was like starting to build up my emergency fund, feeling really good. And then, not to get really like sad and dark, but we had a lot of vet bills, really expensive vet bills recently because my dog passed away. And we have pet insurance and they covered a good portion of it, but it was still really expensive. But luckily I had enough money in my emergency fund. I wasn't excited to spend the money, but I knew I had to. That is how my emergency fund has helped me recently. And of course, there's so many ways that it could help you. The thing about having something in your emergency fund, like even starting with $100 or $300 or $500 at the beginning, is you can always add to it, and hopefully building it over time, I think is so much better than just being like, I can't afford to have an emergency fund. I think it feels really unattainable when I'm thinking of like what people say, like the high end of an emergency fund, like 6 months of necessary living expenses. I'm like, oh my God, like people just have that stored away. What about all the other things you could spend that money on, you know? But I think that's kind of like the really high end of things. People say different amounts, but basically something is so much better than nothing, because if you do have an expense come up, let's say it's gonna be $1,000, okay? And you have $500 already saved in your emergency fund. That's not much, but you have $500 saved. It's like your expense is cut in half. You know that you're gonna still have to figure out how to cover the second half, but at least you already just have it and you're like, oh my gosh. It feels like fake money that you're spending when you have enough in your emergency fund to cover something, because you know, it's annoying kind of that you have to spend it, but you're like, oh my gosh, this is the reason I have this, okay? So from personal experience, it's so incredibly helpful. And I feel like I will always try to have a minimum personally of like a couple thousand in my emergency fund, and hopefully have that built up more. But of course, once you spend the money in your emergency fund, you have to like start it over. So that's the whole thing that I'm currently working on. And the last thing I want to say is your emergency fund, no matter how much, how little, or how high the amount is in there, you 100% want to have that in a high yield savings account. I'm kind of assuming that most of you guys know what that is by now. If you don't, it is basically typically like an online savings account. A lot of banks have them now. I personally use Ally Bank, and they are incredible. They have such a competitive high, I think it's called APY, which is like the amount of money, the amount of interest you earn on your money yearly. And I think mine is almost like 4%. So that means every single month I get a deposit into all of my accounts that I have with Ally, and they essentially pay me for having the account. And the more you have in there, the more you get paid. Every single month you get your interest payment, and it's so fun to see. And it's just such a little motivator, because I used to have Wells Fargo. They give you literally nothing. Like even if you have your savings account, you get like 2 freaking cents a year or something crazy like that. If you don't already have a high yield savings account for at least like I said, your savings, your emergency fund, any amount that you're trying to add to, maybe you're saving to buy a house, saving for a vacation, you want that 100% in a high yield savings account. The longer you keep it in there and the more you add to it, the more it's gonna increase. Every single month I get interest payments, and it is incredible. So I'm gonna leave a link to Ally Bank down below. This is not sponsored or anything. It would be a dream to work with them. I love using Ally. You don't have to pay anything to them to like keep your accounts. They also have no overdraft fees. That was a huge reason I moved over to Ally, and I love it. I've never had a better experience with an online banking app. So I will link that down below as one of the top links in the description box if anyone's looking to increase their income in a super, super easy way. High yield savings account. Before we get into the last 2 financial mistakes, I wanted to take this time to answer a question from my patron, Paula, who has the question that I picked to answer in this particular video. Again, that is in the VIP podcast access tier on my Patreon. So I really like this question. Paula said, do you invest? And how did you learn to? My dad has been trying to get me interested since I was a child, LOL. And like I am, but also am so overwhelmed and don't know how to do it. Okay, so there's many ways that you can invest. So I first off want to start with a great way to invest, and a great way that probably a lot of you guys already do invest. I don't know why my nose is so itchy today, guys. I'm like unwell. Is investing in retirement. Okay, so investing for your future, and that is either a 401k, a Roth IRA, or an IRA. I have an IRA and a Roth IRA. Not to get too deep into it, but when I was in high school, the number one thing I took out of everything I learned in high school, because I literally feel like 95% of it was not helpful to my life or my future at all. But in my senior year of high school, I took an economics class, and my teacher one day made the whole like lecture of the day was basically telling us all to start saving for retirement. So we were like 17, 18-year-olds at the time. And he basically put like something on the screen about compound interest. So I'm gonna put a similar graphic on the screen, because I know a lot of people already know this, but basically if you start saving for retirement, of course it's not exciting to save for when you're getting older, but guys, oh my gosh, trust me, like when you see this graph, you're gonna be gagged, okay? If you don't know about compound interest, basically the earlier you started saving for retirement, it is like the amount of money that you will have by the time you retire is crazy, just from not even saving honestly that much, just by being consistent and starting as young as you possibly can. So I remember I went home from school that day and I told my dad, I was like, I want to start my retirement account. And we set it up. My dad helped me set it up, which was so sweet of him. To this day, I still have the same company that I use. And so anyway, I do invest in that sense, retirement. And I've done that since because I was probably 18 at the time. So since I was 18, and guys, let me tell you, I haven't been putting away crazy amounts of money. I put a small-ish, because that's what I can afford, amount every month that just gets automatically taken out. That is 100% the way to do it. Don't think about it. If you have a 401k, you probably already do the same thing. Every single month I put a little bit of money away, and even the past like 3 years, to see how much my retirement fund has increased over only the past few years is so exciting to see. Like, I love just logging on and seeing that and knowing that I did that all myself. So that was kind of a long way of saying that is how I personally invest. I felt like the past few months was going to be the time. I felt like I was ready to start investing in the stock market. And I wasn't going to invest a crazy amount. I was going to maybe invest like $1,000. And I started looking into it a little bit more, and I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and getting a lot of advice, and I do still want to invest, but I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer. And that is just personally because basically everyone says like, okay, if you could use that money that you are going to invest for something more short term and it would be more helpful to you, like if I could have that $1,000 for the next year. That's the thing about investing, is you put your money in and you shouldn't really expect to like take it out soon. That's from what I've understood, is like you want to keep your money in as long as you can, because that's how it's gonna really grow. So what I would say, if any of you guys actually can afford to invest in the stock market, maybe you do have some extra savings or you're ready to invest, I have heard incredible things about investing in the S&P 500. I won't go into it too much because I feel like I'm not gonna be the best at explaining it, but basically look up investing in the S&P 500. That is where everybody says to start in terms of stocks. I would highly recommend starting first with your retirement account if you have not done that. But there is so many ways that we can increase our income long term, and we should be. So I still absolutely want to invest. I will probably invest in the S&P 500, and I'm gonna just let my money sit there, but I'm not quite prepared to do that yet. You can invest with $100, okay? You don't need any amount of money to invest. I think it will be my goal of like this year to be able to make my first investment. I would recommend you guys check out Shelby Church. She makes incredible content on money, investing as a woman. She is really, really great, and she's one of my like online friends as well. So I'll link her podcast down below and her YouTube channel down below. She has a great video, or actually multiple videos, about how to start investing. But I love this question, and let's go ahead and get back into the last two financial mistakes. Okay, number 4, we actually just were kind of talking about this a little bit. Not saving and investing more when I had a higher income. Okay, so I know I've already been kind of like talking about this a little bit, so I'm gonna keep this one kind of brief. But my career basically like popped off when I was like 18 to 20 years old. 17 to 20 years old, which is not really a normal experience for that many people. But the way you could relate it, and the way I relate it to you guys, is if you're just in a place that you're more comfortable financially than you were even like a year or two ago. That means that you should be saving and investing more, not the same amount that you were when your income was lower, okay? And this is honestly one of my biggest regrets. This is probably number 1 of this whole video. I know I'm making it number 4 talking about it, but like regret-wise, this is absolutely one of my biggest regrets. The thing about regrets is you can't go back and change it. It's just because I was so young and I didn't really have any of this knowledge. I didn't have like a financial advisor. I wish I was just smarter with my money. I know that if I was making that amount of money today, I would be so different in how I saved and invested and went about it. So I just want to tell you guys, you know, if you are that person that's in a comfortable place financially, just to like really make sure that you are putting away money for your future, because you never know when things could change. You know, hopefully your income will continue to increase, but that's not always the case. You know, a lot of times in life we have to take a step back from work or whatever it is, or something happens. Like, times are really uncertain right now, and they have been, so you never know. So if you're in a place that you're feeling comfortable, of course that's something to celebrate, and you should treat yourself in ways. but also just make sure you're being smart about your money. Like for example, I did not have a high yield savings account at this time. That would have been so helpful to me. I just had like freaking Wells Fargo. And like I said, you're not earning any money on your money. So if you already have money sitting in your account, you should be making something off of that, okay? Because you never know what's gonna happen in life. You never know what relationships are gonna change, what money you have that you may not have in a few years. You never know what's gonna happen in life. So just looking out for yourself. If you guys made it this far in the video, comment down below how old you are. I'd be interested in knowing. I'm sorry, I hope that's not too personal. Comment down below how old you are and your biggest financial tip that you feel like you just want to share with everyone in the comments down below. It would be so fun to have a whole little discussion down below. So I would love to hear from you. Not this video being like an hour long, typical Lindsey, but let's finish it off with my number 5 biggest financial mistake: creating unnecessary expenses for myself. Okay, and I really want to emphasize on the unnecessary. And this is something that I've gotten so much better at. You guys know, if you've been watching my videos for years, I used to be a crazy shopaholic. I was wild for years. I've gotten so much more tame. I'm just a lot more conscious about what I'm spending my money on, how many pairs of shoes I have, how many of the same colored shirts I have. I just think about this stuff, and I used to just buy to buy. I was obsessed with swiping my card, couldn't get enough. And I'm not only talking about shopping here. I'm talking about things like I just finished paying off my first car, okay, which was so exciting. I didn't have car payments anymore. What could I have done? I could have gone years with enjoying that and having this car. I honestly still feel like I really liked the car. It was a great car and I didn't need a new car at all. But what did I do? I was so obsessed with the new thing and getting that high off of having something new that I went car shopping literally a month or 2 after I paid off my car, and I bought a new car. I traded my car in, so I didn't have 2 cars. But I bought a new car because I thought that would make me happy. And I mean, yes, in ways it did make me happy and it was fun. But then I just had another car payment and a really, really high amount of money to pay off every month. Why did I feel like I needed to do that? Just creating unnecessary expenses when I had a great car. Okay, so now I've had my car for over 5 years and I paid off my car I think around 2 years ago, and I have not had a car payment since. And when I tell you I'm in the complete opposite mindset of what I was years ago, I love and I take so much joy of not having a car payment. It's just a normal expense that a lot of people factor into their lives every month. And I don't have to worry about that. I don't have any car payment. Of course, there's other car expenses, you guys all know. And I still really love my car. And yeah, of course, sometimes I see cool cars, or maybe I see my car in the new style or a cooler color. And I'm like, ooh, it would be so nice to have that. That car is so beautiful. But you know what? I've accepted now that I don't need another car. It would bring me temporary happiness for, let's be honest, maybe about a month, maybe about 2 months. And then I'm gonna be over it. And I'm gonna be stuck with a really high, or whatever it is, either really high or really long car payment, more debt, more stress, more things I have to factor into my budget. And you know what? That is not worth it for me. So I used to be this person. This is just things to think about that are easy ways that you can be am I just creating unnecessary expenses for myself? I mean, even things just our monthly subscriptions, the things that you're spending money on regularly, make sure you're looking at that stuff often. I don't know, using Amazon Prime and I don't know, Instacart or delivery things or Netflix, HBO, all this stuff. Just make sure you're looking at that and you're knowing how much money you're actually spending and if there's any ways that you can cut back. For example, me, I used to get eyelash extensions for 2 years and you have to go every 2 or 3 weeks to get them done. They're over $100 every time I would get them done. And then at one point I was just I can't freaking afford this anymore. And I stopped and I never looked back, and I've never even wanted eyelash extensions again. I actually think I look better without them. I was pretty much putting temporary convenience before long-term financial goals and financial stability, okay? Which is something that a lot of us do all the time. in our own ways, and it's just something that I regret. So that is it. I know this was a really long one, so let me know if you made it until the end of this. I'm probably gonna try to cut it a little bit. I just love talking about personal finance. I find it so fascinating. I genuinely think in another life, I was like an accountant or a financial advisor. Maybe it's because my dad is an accountant and I just feel it so ingrained in me. Me and money, honey, we've had a lot of different eras, okay? And sometimes we're in a good relationship, healthy. Sometimes we are in a toxic, horrible relationship, all right? And I feel like it's normal to have these weird relationships with money. And I just think talking about it and normalizing these things is so important, and I hope that you guys got something out of this video. If you made it this far, let me know what I should talk about next. Whatever you think it is, I'm not gonna only keep these about like mistakes. I wanna talk about everything in these videos, but it was so fun to chat with you guys about this today. I will have links down below in the description box to many things I talked about. So resources down below, I'll have the link to the high yield savings account. Definitely check that out. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you are not subscribed, I would absolutely love it if you subscribed to stick around for more videos, and I will see you guys very soon in my next one. Bye.